Hello and welcome to another Teck Campus Coffee live webinar. This is an opportunity for you to learn about career paths at Teck directly from professionals in your field.
We'll be speaking to technical representatives from a variety of fields at Teck, and they'll share why they enjoy what they do.
Participants also have a chance to directly ask speakers and recruiters questions and get a good understanding of why Teck is a great place to work, as well as where your strengths, talents, and learning opportunities lie. Our two guest speakers today are Sarah Whitehouse, and she's a senior environmental coordinator at Highland Valley Copper Operation. And she's got a Master's of Science in Environmental Science at Thompson Rivers University. And Casandra Knooihuizen, I guess I should have worked on that one before this. She's Senior Environmental Coordinator at Greenhills Operation, and she's got a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Science at the University of Lethbridge. Maybe we'll start off with Sarah. Do you want to maybe introduce yourself and maybe talk a little bit about what you do at Teck?
Yeah, you bet. Thank you. So, hi. I'm Sarah Whitehouse. I am the Senior Environmental Coordinator, or one of them, at Highland Valley Copper. So we're a large copper and molybdenum mine in the interior of British Columbia. And in my role, I oversee our water quality programs and a number of the permitting activities related to water. So in this role, I do a lot of the technical work, so data review, as well as the community engagement and regulatory engagement on these projects. So with that, as a mine, we have to have permits in place in order to be able to operate. And as part of achieving compliance with those permits, we have a number of different environmental monitoring programs in place. And so my role is to really oversee the implementation of these. And so that's like groundwater quality and surface water quality monitoring for environmental protection, aquatic biology programs to monitor the downstream aquatic ecosystems, metal leaching and acid rock drainage, where we look at how the mining process and the increased rock exposure could potentially impact water quality, as well as one of my favorite programs, which is our aquatic research and reclamation program. So that's where, we have mine facilities that at closure have to be reclaimed back to productive ecosystems. So we have an ongoing research program where we have areas of the mine site that are closed. So some historic tailing storage facilities and some historic pits where we undertake reclamation research to look at how we can actually leverage natural processes in order to achieve productive ecosystems. And so this is where we have a historic tailings pond that we've established to a productive fishery, another one that's a productive wetland, and then we have some of our historic pits where we're looking at establishing pit-like bioreactors where we leverage natural processes that can improve water quality within the pit lakes themselves. And so within all of those programs, I work with our environmental technicians and make sure that we're achieving compliance and advancing those programs, and engage with our different technical consultants on moving those programs forward, and then engage with our regulators and communities on all of it. So it's kind of a broad range of pieces that I touch on there.
Saki, you're on mute.
Whoops, there we go. Like the 4,000th time I've done that. Maybe Cassandra, same question for you, and maybe talk a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure, yeah, Cassandra Knooihuizen. I work at Greenhills Operations in the Highland Valley, so we're a metallurgical coal mine. I'm currently the Senior Environmental Coordinator there, and I lead, supervise, and support a team of professionals who are responsible for a wide variety of different things, similar to what was already mentioned, for compliance and implementing some of our best management practices. So there's about 8 people in my group, and we're all focusing on different things around water management, wildlife, our environmental management system, air management, to name a few. And then we communicate with our different communities of interest and government agencies as well as we kind of work through those programs. But I want to touch on a few other things that I've also done at Teck, just to get a little bit more wide variety of what's going on here. So I started off as a technician And in that role, there's a few different components to it. So while I was working there, it was surface and groundwater sampling, air quality monitoring, so running some of our sampling for PM10 and PM2.5, supporting the reclamation work. So we look at a few different components for that. So resloping, contouring, planting or seeding, doing some monitoring for that, a lot of contractor management around that role. And then in the environmental coordinator role, kind of moving away from the field and into more reporting. So reporting on our groundwater, surface water, and air quality parameters, helping with some permitting applications as we move into new areas or work on new projects. Also helping with our ISO 14001 certification. So that's a certification under environmental management program, recognized worldwide. Helping with some wildlife mitigation, so that could be around American badgers or other species of concern or different birds. An interesting, some little fun thing that we were able to do was we found a red-tailed hawk that fell out of the nest when I first started, and we were able to send that to the Lower Mainland for rehabilitation, and we were able to release that on our site after it was rehabilitated. So that was pretty fulfilling, fun project. And then in the environmental lead role, I was supporting our environmental assessment certificate implementation. So after we received our environmental assessment certificate from the government, kind of getting that going, making sure we're meeting all of our commitments, working with other departments to develop different tools, a lot of community outreach and engagement. Through the Social Community and Economic Success Advisory Committee, which is a committee made up of members of the District of Sparwood, and they're all on the committee, and we meet with them quarterly. And it was the first committee that we kind of made with in the Valley, I should say, with that type, which was really great. Also helping to develop management plans, so around blasting. So at our site, we use explosives to be able to move the rock. So managing blasting and vibrations within the communities, a noise management plan, so reducing noise within the communities, and also the visual quality management plan, which was the first management plan of its kind for a mine in BC, which is really cool. A lot of the principles we used were for forestry. So trying to understand the different impacts that we could have and mitigate them for the community. Yeah, that's a bit of the stuff that I've worked on so far at Teck.
Keep you busy, that sounds of it. Awesome, Cassandra, thanks. Great, so what we'll do, we'll move into sort of a question answer period. So I've got questions here to ask for sure, but also I encourage anyone on the call that if they have any questions, you can type them in the chat, or if you could raise the hand as well. So there's a little person with a little hand there, you can raise that, and then what we'll do is come around and answer any questions. You can turn your camera on. Just being mindful of how many people are on the call today, that if you have more than one question, and I know you guys are probably excited to ask lots of questions because there's lots of cool stuff happening, just try and ask one at a time, and then you can raise your hand again and we can come back to you just to make sure that we can get around to everybody. So I don't see anything in the chat right now, and I know some people can't see the chat, so that's why I encourage that hand up if you do. But I got a couple of things to start with if we want. And I guess maybe we'll start with you, Sarah, and maybe tell me about a little bit, I guess, what makes you excited about the next couple of years? You know, we've seen lots of shifts, especially in the environmental field over the past few years with Teck. So maybe tell me a little bit about any projects that you're working on in particular, any technologies. What gets you excited for the next few years at Teck and the future of what we're doing?
Yeah, great question. So, I mean, you guys were talking about the Race 21 initiatives earlier, and it's really, really exciting to be able to be a part of that. So as you can imagine, with all of the different monitoring management programs that I was referring to, as well as the ones Cassandra's referring to, because, you know, I focused in on water because that's really my main role, but there's so much more to environment than just water. I mean, in my world, I like to think of water, but that we collect massive amounts of data, and we have the opportunity in this day and age to really start doing more with it. We, improve our insights into what the data is telling us more proactively. Historically, I think, it was collect the data and take action, and you develop your monitoring programs in a way that you have stations that are early indicators to allow you to take proactive approaches. And this just gives us that next level up where we can start working to establish real-time data availability with our different monitoring programs, and look at how we can potentially use advanced analytics in order to improve our insights into that data. And so that is a program from the water side of things that I'm currently involved in with HVC, as well as a number of other Teck operations that I'm really excited to see advance and be able to look at all the cool things we're going to be able to do with our data.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's definitely going to be a game changer, hey?
Yeah.
Awesome. And then I guess same question for you, Cassandra. Is there anything that gets you excited, or anything that's particularly like a cool project that's coming down the line that makes you excited about the next couple of years?
Yeah, sure. I might speak to water projects as well, which have kind of
big one.
Yeah, there's lots of stuff happening in water, and Stacey kind of mentioned a few that maybe I'll just expand on a little bit. But our saturated rockfill projects are pretty interesting, and something that just went through our research and development program and now have moved to full scale. So really what they are is a pit that's been mined out and was backfilled with rock, and now holds water, and water is pumped in and out of these areas, and while it flows through that, there's natural microbial communities that remove selenium and nitrate and treat our water. And it's a program that can exist in nature, and we are able to kind of capture it and use it for those things. So it's pretty cool, the new things that are coming out for not only water but other programs as through our research and development different groups there.
That's awesome. Yeah, that gets me pretty excited too. I have to say, I love when I get to hear more about the water projects and sort of the progress that we've seen over the past like 10 years with Teck in terms of how we treat our water is just, yeah, mind-boggling, the changes. Great. Okay, I've got a few questions popping up. They're coming in fast and furious, so bear with me while I try and handle all these. Someone's asked here, I'd be interested to hear about everyone's academic and career path to get where they are today. So maybe, Sarah, do you want to start and talk a little bit about how you made your decision to move into mining?
Yeah, sure. It's a little bit of a lengthy one, but so I did my undergrad in environmental chemistry and environmental economics and sustainable development at Thompson Rivers University, and through the CoOp program, I got a job with Highland Valley Copper. So I started working in the assay lab as a chemical technician, and I went back for a second summer after I decided not to finish my undergrad that year, not knowing where I was going, and called up HVC and was like, hey, do you guys need a student again? And they were like, come on up. And happened to work out really well that somebody was retiring right about the time that I was graduating. So I decided that it was worth just having the conversation. As frightened as I was, have the conversation and be like, hey, do you guys want to hire me? Like, I was really enjoying the work that I was doing. And so by the time I left at the end of the summer, I had arranged to have a job for graduation. So that was really exciting. I worked 2 years in the assay lab as a chemical technician. And then I made my transition over to metallurgy after that. So I worked in our metallurgical lab as a metallurgical technician for 2 years, working in mill processing. And, at the time I was still super motivated to get into an environmental role. Like, that was really what I was passionate about. But, those 4 years was also, I got to learn so much around mining process that was super critical to my success in the environmental role. And so at the time where I was looking at, like, I really want to transition this, I decided to start pursuing my master's in environmental science on the side. And that, in a fairly short order, propelled me into a environmental role with HVC through the support of our management team that recognized that I was super passionate about it. And so I graduated with my master's almost 2 years ago now, and I've been in the environmental role for about 5 years. And I've taken on progressive responsibility through that. So originally I started out more on the technician side, the fieldwork side, and then taking in more of that junior role of supporting the implementation of these plans and some of our minor permitting activities, and then have continued to take on progressive responsibility since then, being more involved at that kind of bigger picture perspective of water management.
Awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
All right, Cassandra, I know you mentioned a little bit about your growth through a technician into your role, but maybe give us a little bit more detail if you can.
Sure, yeah. So I graduated from the University of Lethbridge, as already mentioned, and started working in oil and gas, like many folks in Alberta, doing land acquisition work and then moving on to remediation work. And I'm actually from the Valley, so born and raised in Fernie, and wanting to come back here. So that was always kind of the goal. So when there was a temporary, there's actually an 8-month posting for a technician position, jumped on it. And then, as I kind of mentioned, kind of went from there. So technician for about a year, and then a coordinator for about a couple of years, and then lead, and I just got into the senior role last year. So I've been doing this role it'll be about a year this spring. And similar to what Sarah mentioned, starting off more in the field, which is so important and really helps to understand, like, build your knowledge as you move through all the other roles. Understanding what people are seeing and being able to give advice on what to do next if you've actually done it is so much easier. So yeah, it's been really great.
Awesome. Great. Okay, and then someone's asked about the difference between environmental science versus environmental studies. Is there a crossover between the two? And I guess I would add to that is, even, I know I get this a lot through CoOp interviews, is what's the difference if you're an environmental engineer versus environmental science? If you can maybe talk to a little bit about those differences or nuances between the two. Maybe Cassandra, you could start, sorry.
It's funny, Sarah and I were talking about this on our last call.
Oh.
There's quite a bit of overlap. We do have environmental engineers and people with environmental engineering degrees and environmental science degrees doing similar roles. Within our operations, there are some projects and different programs that do hire just environmental engineers, but a lot of the times it's kind of best fit for the role with the person and their understanding and their knowledge and that sort of thing, from my perspective.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for that. Sarah, do you have anything to add to that one? That kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's very in line with what I would have to say, that there's a lot of crossover, and that it really depends on the specifics of that role. There are definitely, there are environmental engineers that have that specific engineering kind of role that you wouldn't see somebody with environmental sciences necessarily step into, and vice versa, but it's really around what skill set you've come with for the specific role that you're filling. And so there's a lot of overlap there. And I work alongside numerous environmental professionals that fall under either category.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that makes sense. And I know that I interview a lot of environmental engineers, and something, you both alluded to is I always encourage them, like, you need to get boots on the ground. You want to get that field experience. It's so key to being successful long term, right?
Well, and that opportunity to engage beyond just that environmental field role, but to actually get out and engage with people in operations to understand how the systems work, really helps build that understanding of our potential impacts on the environment as well. So that's been one of the pieces that I found really helpful in my transition from mill operations and mill technical into the environmental role. And so if there's the opportunity to go and have a day tour around with somebody from the operations department, and they can show you how things work out there, like, there's so much value in that.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Okay, great. Someone's asked here about living and working in a remote location. So what kind of support does Teck offer in that matter? so maybe I guess something that we all like talking about is we've all sort of chosen to work for a great company, but we get to live in some pretty awesome places. So maybe I'll start with that part of the question. Maybe Sarah, if you want to talk to us a little bit about your area and the community that you get to live in and what sort of things you do for fun.
Yeah, I mean, from the remote perspective, I can't really say much. I'm pretty lucky.
Yeah.
HVC is, a fairly large scale mining operation that is on the outskirts of some reasonable sized urban centers. So, I live in Kamloops. It's population of around 100,000, and I commute 45 minutes to an hour to the mine site when I am working on site. Recognizing we're in COVID, I've been doing a lot of remote work. And I know there's so at Highland Valley, we have people that live in Logan Lake, that live in Ashcroft, Merritt, Kamloops, some commute from Kelowna, which is a little bit of a further commute, and maybe have a place that they live in Logan Lake during their shift. But we're pretty lucky to have the opportunity to be able to have the scale of the operation that we work at without having to be in a remote location.
Yeah, for
the
sure.
highway drive is a little gnarly sometimes. I'm not gonna lie. You guys might have heard about the BC Coquihalla Highway. It's actually probably one of the biggest risks, I would say, when we commute to and from site, is having that consideration for wanting to be able to safely get to and from work. So
yeah, for sure. All right, how about for you, Cassandra? So you're an actual local for the Elk Valley area, but I'm sure you've spent years enjoying the area. So maybe talk to us a little bit about the communities here.
Yeah, so I live in Fernie, and I'm now working at Greenhills, which is near Elkford. So those are two communities near the mines in our region. There's also Sparwood. People live also in the Crozes Pass, so on the Alberta side, and even in Cranbrook, which is a little further away, but a possibility as well. And I think that everyone that lives here would agree that there's a lot to do outside. So in the wintertime, of course, skiing, cross-country skiing, lots of lakes to skate on. And when it's not COVID, lots of events are organized and we get to go to, which is really fun. In the summertime, camping and fishing and hiking, mountain biking. It's pretty endless. And like I mentioned, in the winter, just same in the summer, we have music festivals that are organized here that we get to go to. It's a pretty lively community in our area, and people speak to that a lot. I think who move here, just how they come for the activities, and I mean, I think they say stay for the summer, but also stay for the people.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, that's awesome. Yeah, no, we're pretty lucky. Even our small towns here. So, average somewhere between 3,000 to 5,000 people in the different communities in the Elk Valley. And Teck contributes so much to the communities as well. So when you talk about what does Teck do to support that, our amenities in these communities are much more than you would see in a normal 5,000 person town or 4,000 person town. We have amazing rec centers and like Cassandra said, like Nordic centers. And Teck contributes to all those facilities. And I think the same in the Kamloops and Logan Lake area as well. So it's just Teck not only contributes to us to have we have healthy lifestyle accounts that you have, and as an employee, a full-time employee, but then we also have these amenities available to us, which are pretty amazing. So we're pretty lucky. We get to live in places where people want a vacation all the time. So great. Someone's asked a little bit about what skills they could work on before a co-op term that could help them be successful in a placement with Teck. I know, Sarah, you had mentioned in particular some of that technology implementation. Is there any sort of skill sets that you'd like to see, or any sort of even knowledge in certain programming, anything like that you'd like to see as a student coming on board? And I'll start with you, Sarah, and we'll move into Cassandra.
Well, if you're looking at coming on board into like an entry-level position, or co-op position where you're supporting in the field, understanding some of the regulation that in the area that you're operating under. And so in BC, I think of the BC Field Sampling Handbook. If you're going out and going to be doing a whole bunch of field monitoring, it's a publicly available document that really provides guidelines of how you actually need to conduct this monitoring. That any program that's a permit required program in BC must meet the requirements of. So it's a good document to familiarize yourself with in British Columbia context. I imagine in other regulatory areas that or in other jurisdictions, it would be, they'd have something of similar nature.
Okay, awesome, thanks. Anything you could think of, Cassandra, that you'd like to see? I know you've had lots of co-ops over the years.
Yeah, the main thing I'm thinking of is maybe less of a skill and more an attitude. Having someone who's open and willing to try new things, and which I think most co-ops are. Like we've had some really great co-ops here, but just because they're excited about learning, and really that's what we're looking for, is someone who's keen and excited about the things that we're excited about.
Awesome, thanks. Phew, that's a relief for me anyway. That they're going well. All right, and then as a new hire, can you guys think of any training or development opportunities that are available for a new hire? Any sort of specifically, or is it more like group sort of informal training?
Sure, I can.
Yeah,
I have a few things. We do a lot of safety training. It's the first thing that comes to mind. We've been putting together all of our training requirements for safety recently. So, we're moving into winter, thinking about AVI training. We do operate ATVs or side-by-sides or sleds as well. So making sure that the people who are in the field know how to use those safely and feel comfortable using them. A lot of training around using our Take 5. So that's a tool that we use to assess hazards. So those are some of the basic training that anybody would get before they even go outside. And then we also we have training depending on where you work and what you're doing as well. So one that we just went through as an example is our ISO auditing training for the environmental management system that I mentioned. So if you're a part of that, then you'll learn how to audit that program and what a good ISO program looks like. And so yeah, there's quite a lot of training that's specific to environment that we go through.
Interesting. I didn't realize you guys went through Avalanche training, so that's pretty neat to add to the repertoire.
Yeah. The people in the field get some really cool programs that they get to get trained on. Go sledding for work. When I first started, we used to hop in a helicopter and do water sampling. It's pretty cool.
That's pretty awesome. Great. Anything you want to add to that, Sarah?
Yeah, I'll add a couple training that I know for most new hires at HVC. You would go through, we call it our safety in doc, but it covers much more than just safety considerations. And part of that is actually our environmental reclamation tour. So you get a history of HVC's operations, and we take you through all of the area, all of our reclaimed areas, and walk through how we've actually worked to achieve some of that, trying to build that knowledge across site so there is that increased environmental awareness. One of the other training programs at HVC that our employees go through is cultural awareness training. And so recognizing at Highland Valley Copper, we operate on the traditional territory of the Inkthakapmik Nation, that we provide our employees training on the history around that, and just to promote that awareness, and so people are aware of the interest and history of the land and where we are, as well as all of the safety training, that Cassandra. We don't so much have avalanche training as much, a little bit of a lower risk. We do get snow, but it's not a focused training for ours. And then, we have much more like job specific training as well. So like professional development, where there's a certain skill set that needs to be developed in order to support a role. Then you get down to that more fine grained training that might be in around like data management, different tools we use, such as like our water balances, our water quality models, our data management software. So those are more on an as needs basis as we either transition to new technologies or are bringing new people online that require that support.
Awesome. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Great. And I know I'm mindful of time. We have a couple co-ops on the call, and I know it's really nice for students to hear a little bit about their experience. And so I have Ashley and Charisse on the line here that are current co-ops with the coal business unit. So maybe I'll start with you, Ashley, because you were a quick draw and turn the camera on. Ashley, could you give us a quick rundown of your experience so far with Teck and how it is being a co-op with our operations here?
Yeah, it's been great. Like Cassandra said, we get a lot of training that like we might not otherwise be able to do. Like I've done a ton of training. And my role right now, I'm more like an environmental technician. So I support the sampling team. I get to go out in the field every day. We actually just got back and we were driving the side-by-side out in the field today, going up hills. Like we go from the top of the mine down to the bottom, and it's great. Like I get real experience, and I've actually been able to use my experience here to get another student position after this one ends. So it's been great. And you had mentioned earlier about boots on the ground. That was the #1 tip I've been given by professionals, is to get that field experience and really understand what goes into it. And before I started here, I didn't realize how much did go into it. So it's been great to see, like, it gives you a more of a positive look on the company, because a lot of people, they hear coal or they hear mining and they think just negative things, but seeing all the work that the company puts in to take care of the water, the soil, the air, it's been really like eye-opening. It's great it's been like an amazing few months so far. Like I'm enjoying it. It's so great to be out in the field every day. It's a really great team. Everyone has a super positive outlook, and people here, like, everyone seems genuinely happy to be here, even during COVID. And it's been great. And Teck's actually handled it quite well too. Like we wear masks whenever we're on site with other people. So it's been great. I feel safer at Teck than I do like out in my own, like out in town. So it's been great. Yeah, I would recommend a student position to anybody.
Oh, thanks, Ashley. That's great. All right, and Charisse, I know you have a little bit of a different role with Teck, so maybe you could talk to us a little bit about your co-op position, and then I know we'll jump to trivia, Misaki.
Yeah, so I'm actually out of the Sparwood office, which means I'm not at one site in particular. I actually get to go to all 5 throughout my co-op, so I'm pretty grateful for that. Basically, the biodiversity team has anything from wildlife mitigations to revegetation to resloping. They kind of get to do it all. I'm more on the vegetation and biodiversity. So some of the projects that I've got thrown into, we did some riparian rehabilitation work in the fall, which was pretty cool. It had a lot to do with fish offsetting. And then I've also got thrown into planting around all the sites and some stuff with bighorn sheep. And yeah, I totally agree with Ashley. This is like by far the best opportunity I've gotten thus far. I love all the people I work with. They're all super kind and helpful. And one little tidbit I've learned while being here, if you guys do decide to have a co-op with Teck, is all the supervisors are very willing to help you expand and communicate with others throughout the company. So if you want to get more experience in something like water or geology or honestly anything, everyone's super willing to help you do that. So you just gotta make sure you make your voice heard and ask questions, and you'll definitely enjoy your time.
Awesome, Charisse, thanks for that. Thanks for sharing. So this slide is just a couple of quotes from some students that have worked here as environmental co-ops, and a little bit about their experience. So to add to what Ashley and Charisse have sort of talked about, it just adds a little bit more. I could talk about until I'm blue in the face, but it means a lot when it comes from colleagues and other students of yours. So we do a survey with all our students as they leave, and they often say a lot of really cool things about the type of work they get to do. And I think the most common thing you'll hear, and it sort of speaks to exactly what Sarah and Cassandra talked about too, is they can't believe how much responsibility they were given as a co-op with Teck, but that they learned so much. And you can see from the variety and the scope of the jobs that they have, you can imagine the kind of experience you could get as a co-op when you're supporting a team that's got such a diverse sort of amount of projects and sort of things that they're working on. So right now, you'll see our postings are actually on our Teck website for the upcoming May term. So I'm currently recruiting for quite a few co-ops. So we're looking at about 46 co-ops to bring on board for the Coley business unit, in addition to another 13 across the other business units. So some of those at HVC as well as our Vancouver office. And at least I know on the coal business student, at least 10 of those are going to be environmental. So we have quite a few opportunities. So you'll see one posting that sort of capture all those positions that we're going to have coming up in the upcoming term. The majority of our roles are going to be 8 months in duration. So just be aware that at least 8 months, maybe 12, up to maximum 16. But we don't hire a lot of 4-month opportunities, and only because, again, like we had sort of highlighted earlier, the scope is pretty large, and in 4 months, it's almost too fast. You're just getting into understand the operations and all the different projects that are happening, that we find 8 months is a lot better for the student as well as for the business to really get you in depth in some more projects and get to see things from start to finish and really have to start to understand the operations so much more. So we do tend to lean on sort of longer terms. So you can apply through the website or through your co-op offices, if you see the posting there as well. And we'll be actively doing recruitment over the next few weeks to a month at least, up until usually about a month prior to the start. So until the end of March, they will be doing recruitment. So please feel free to get your application as soon as possible, though, because we're starting right away here.
Great, and just to jump in there, I know we're sort of running a bit behind. So for those students who do need to jump off, well, thank you for attending. And for those who can stick around, we will stick around and try to answer all of your questions in the chat. We see some great ones here. And the one thing I did want to add is, though, for those who are going to jump off, is we have a feedback survey that we would definitely appreciate your feedback on this campus coffee and for future campus coffees. Our goal is to be able to provide value to the students going forward, or shut things down if students aren't interested in future campus coffees. So there's a link in the chat, but also we'll spam you a bit later, and provide you the link as well for those who can't access the chat. But yeah, let's maybe switch gears to the questions in the chat. It looks like Oscar's got a question here.
Sure, yeah, I can go through it. And yeah, well, like Misaki said earlier, we'll focus on the more technical ones while we have Sarah and Cassandra here. And then if they have to drop off, and Misaki and I can handle some recruitment related ones. But Oscar's asked, do your views or existing understanding change on environmental science after working for a period of time? And what would you say to aspiring scientists regarding the importance of this study? This is a heavy one. See if we can. Sarah, do you want to start with this one? And I guess any words of wisdom for
I wouldn't say my views have changed. I think there's different levels of environmental science. So you've got your like pure academia, like researcher hat on, and then how does that translate into in the field implementation? And so, I mean, in my role, I love that I get a little bit of both of that. We have research agreements in place with some of the universities where we look to collaborate on studies. And so we get to have input into that academic pursuit. And then we get to look at like, what does that look like from an operational implementation perspective? So yeah, I guess I wouldn't say it's changed. It just makes me realize that from an academia perspective, it's sometimes hard to have what that real world perspective of actually executing on it is without having that operational insight. And so it's always good to have a diverse team to provide that input so you can have those broader views.
Yeah,
that makes sense. I don't know if I really answered that well, but that's a tough question.
It's a tough one. Yeah, we could talk about that one for the whole time, really. Like it's there's so much difference between when you come from university to get into the field and really see things in practice, right? And maybe Cassandra, so maybe we'll do one for one here, and maybe I'll hit you with a hard one, but we talked a little bit about diversity, Sarah, so maybe that gives us a good segue into the next question, which was, if you want, Cassandra, could you comment on your experiences as a woman in the mining industry and any barriers that you've overcome through your position in the field or in the office?
Sure, yeah. So when I started, I was the only female in our environment department. And now it's about 50-50. So there's been a major change. And I know, Stacey, you could speak to this more than I could probably. And in our practice, we have like policies and practices in hiring for diversity. So, and you definitely see that at the site, and not only in the environment department, but in all of our departments. There's a significant, very, very diverse, and I mean, I've done quite a few with Teck, talking about training. We've had training programs on diversity, and understanding the importance of diversity within our groups and how they contribute positively to different ideas, and really giving the best product. So Teck, it's definitely in the forefront of Teck and how we hire and how we do things, making sure diversity is right there.
Yeah, and not only as we hire too, like it's been neat, and you guys could probably both speak to this very easily, but just not only hire, but even just building up females within that leadership group and really supporting them through their career aspirations and making sure, everyone is offered those same opportunities, male or female. So it's been neat to see more and more females moving up into leadership roles and offering that diverse perspective as well. So it's exciting. Great. All right. Someone's asked here if they're currently resigning. Sorry, I can go to that one. Sorry. Let's see here. So, and just looking for more technical ones. Bear with me, Misaki, if you see one faster than I do. I'm scrolling
really
frantically.
Yeah, I think Cush McGill has. Oh no, they're all pretty recruitment related. So I think you can go to the top and work your way down again. So I think next up was from Adina. I guess considering these places are remote. So Stacy, maybe for you, these places are remote? Are we supposed to have a vehicle or a full driver's license?
You're not required to have a vehicle, but certainly a full driver's license. And similar to what Cassandra and Sarah had talked about, you do work in the field quite a bit, and you are expected to drive a vehicle on site as a new hire or as a student potentially as well, especially if you're going out, like whether it's you could be sledding or you could be on a side-by-side, but it also could be a truck. So we do require our candidates to have a full driver's license for the positions here. Another one's asked about relocation. So as a co-op student, we have some great benefits. So I'll speak to co-op and then I can speak to full-time as well. But as a co-op, we provide obviously a really competitive salary. In addition to that, we also pay for your travel to the operations at the beginning of your term and then home again to wherever you reside at the end of your term. We also give you a $500 settling in allowance, or that's just basically to offset any other costs. So we used to pay for every little receipt for meals, that sort of thing, but that $500 is like offset any sort of additional costs over and above that actual travel cost to get you here for your term. And then we pay for co-op fees as well, up to $700 a term. So there's some nice benefits that come along with the co-op in addition to some super cool work.
Looks like Bass has got a question for you. Is there any academic degree requirement for an entry-level position, and can mechanical engineers apply?
Well, we've got some, people that want to go outside their discipline. That's how appealing you've made it. Well, we generally stick to Enviro, and only because there's definitely key skills and training that people have seen, obviously, through their academic background through the environmental programs. So, I mean, I guess if there was a particular interest and you had some courses outside of the mechanical side and you focused in Enviro, we could potentially entertain that. But more often than not, it's people who have studied and focused on the environmental field. I guess, can you speak to that any more, Cassandra? Is there anything else that you want to add to that? Or does that make sense?
No, I think that, yeah.
Okay.
How many mechanical positions are we looking to fill? Like just specific mechanical positions, Stacy?
Yeah, mechanical, I have at least 7 positions for the upcoming co-op term, and I know we have some EIT roles too. So depending on what the person's looking for, we definitely have a little bit of both. And you know what? Like even in different disciplines, you still like our teams are working so closely together that you likely you're going to have exposure to that environmental side. Like when you talk about like spill management and different things like that come up, those are lots of overlap within the program. So even as a mechanical engineer, you're focused in that field, you'll still have projects and sort of work with the environmental department quite closely.
I've worked with the mechanical engineer co-op at our site before as they've been building power lines or substations and things like that. So you definitely get exposure to other areas no matter where you go.
Yeah. Awesome.
A new technical question's come in from Mandy. That's probably out of Stacy and my our repertoire. So, would you suggest for new hires to take an online training class on GRI reporting or EMS?
Sarah, do you want to manage that one?
You know, I think having additional training courses to set yourself apart never hurts. So, you know, when you're looking at global reporting initiatives and environmental management systems training, it's definitely a value. I think it would depend on the role that you're applying for and its level of relevance. But I might defer to Cassandra for a little bit more on this. I haven't been nearly as involved in the hiring process, so always good to get feedback from somebody that might be a little bit more.
No, I agree. I think that I would default to say more actual use of the training would be more beneficial than doing the training online. So you know, if you have a degree in environmental science and then you start working and you get some exposure to those different things, that's probably the way that I would lean towards, rather than taking a course prior to. Like Sarah said, depending on what you applied for, it may change quite a bit. So.
Yeah, I know there's no straight answers always, or we work a lot in the gray area there. Yeah, no, that's awesome. Great. And then I've got another question here about recent graduates applying for co-op. So I would say no, generally, and we have done it before, but I would encourage you to be in a co-op program if you're going to apply for a co-op. And also, it's just that also too, we want you to commit for a certain term, but then if you're a recent graduate, it just makes it really challenging because it holds you within a co-op. And we've had people who sort of bailed out of a co-op to get a full-time role when I have done that in the past. So we're hesitant to hire new graduates for co-op positions and really want to support those co-op students that are within their program as well. So I would say, I guess, a no in that I wouldn't hire a recent graduate for co-op, but you could also go the route of looking for a technician role, which is similar to both Sarah and Cassandra both said, where it's a great foot in the door. You get that hands-on experience and then you can grow within the department. And that's a great way to get in as an entry-level role as an environmental scientist.
Yeah, just to build on that, I mean, the reason why we don't want to fill co-op roles with potential people who be full-time is if they do well, you want to keep them, and all of a sudden we lose these co-op positions.
Yeah.
And part of Tech's goal is to commit to providing professional development opportunities to students. And so in order to do that, we need to protect these co-op roles. So Stacy and I are here to make sure that there's as many co-op opportunities in a variety of fields as possible for students.
Awesome. I think we've got them all covered. Am I missing any of them?
I know we talked about diversity. So there's a question, can you speak about diversity within tech? I know we covered a little bit. Do we need to go deeper dive on that one, or I think we've covered it?
I think we did a pretty good coverage of diversity within the groups. And like Cassandra said, like the environmental group in particular is about 50% female at the coal business unit. I think it might be similar to HVC as well, Sarah. So it's I think that speaks volumes.
Yeah, I'd say beyond increasing representation of females, it would also be representing the diversity of the local communities. So working with local Indigenous communities in HVC's context in order to have good representation from local communities within our workforce as well is another big initiative.
Yeah, for sure.
On that note, I do need to run.
It's all good. Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah.
We appreciate your time. We should release both Cassandra and you, I think, too. I know you're busy.
Yes. Thank you very much for your time. And so Stacey and I we'll stick around, I guess, for maybe last call for questions for students. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Cassandra.
Thank you.
We still have a number of students on the call. So yeah, if you can fire away your questions, please. I see one question. I don't know if we've fully covered it, so it's different spirit on me. But it's for you, Stacy. It was for environmental science roles. Does Tech mainly hire from our student pool or equally hire externally?
It's a little bit of both, actually. Yeah. So the purpose of the co-op program is certainly for us to build a talent pool to be able to fill full-time positions, and that's certainly something that we do a lot of. But we can't rely on that alone. And there's always people out there that maybe haven't had a co-op opportunity or went through traditional programs that haven't had a chance to work for us. So I would say it's actually about half. So of the EIT and engineering training or professionals in training that we've hired over the last year, about half of them were former co-ops and half of them were external for those new grad hires. So yeah, so both would have equal opportunity.
All right, I think we've been thorough. Have we answered everything?
So any other
no.
questions last?
Fatima,
okay.
I think, has a question.
Awesome.
Is it typical for co-op students to end up working full-time at Teck?
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So like I said, similar to what I just mentioned, we certainly look to co-op as a way to build a talent pool for future opportunities. So that's part of the reason why I sort of alluded to it when we were talking about student experience. We do a survey with all our students as they're leaving, as well as with their supervisors. And some of the feedback we get then, we use that. So right now, this morning, I was firing off some student evaluations from a couple of years ago of students that now have applied for full-time positions. And that just adds strength to their application as a former student, because we already had insight into their work abilities and what they were able to achieve as a co-op here. So certainly that's the whole premise of the program, is really to help build up those talent pools to fill those future roles. And there's no shortage of them in the environmental side of things. We're doing a lot of hiring in that field.
Yeah, definitely. Adina has another question for you. What about people who are graduating this spring? Can they apply for summer?
So if you're graduated and you're looking for, you can certainly apply for a full-time role. But yeah, as a co-op or a summer student, you have to be returning to school to be able to be qualified for a co-op or summer student role.
And just to add to that, so those full-time positions that they basically pop up, and we don't regularly hire EITs at a particular time of the year. It's as needed, and so the main thing is we need a lot of people. We need a lot of people in the next couple of years, but we don't know when. And so I encourage those students who are going to be graduating to just keep an eye on our tech.com/careers page for students, tech.com/campus, because it filters it just to the co-op positions and the summer positions. And also look a little bit deeper at some of the postings, because sometimes the titles may not necessarily there may be positions that you are qualified for or be interested in, but aren't. So for example, if you're a environmental environmental science, there may be other titles that don't scream environmental science in the actual title. I can't think of an example. Maybe Stacy can help me out with that. But yeah, there's
lots of different areas. Yeah, and we always sort of joke about that when people ask about new graduate positions. Is like, yeah, it might be very mining specific or even tech specific for that matter. It's sort of the running joke within the recruiting team that sometimes people outside of this field might not recognize some of the job titles. So yeah, it does help to do your homework. You might have someone called a aquatics fish and wildlife professional or aquatic habitat professional, or like some of them get really specific in specialized areas, or water management, lead or something like that. There's lots of different titles within the environment. So you're not going to see environmental scientist or those sorts of things. They get quite specific at times. So certainly keep an eye, do a little homework on what kind of names and titles you see, and then you'll know what to apply for. And then you can set yourself up for job alerts as well. So if one of the requirements is, say, an environmental science degree, you can set yourself up for job alerts that every posting that says that, you can get an email so that you're made aware of that posting as well. So it makes it a little bit easier once you sort of understand what you're looking for. Thanks everyone for joining.
All right, thanks everybody. Have a great day. Stay safe.
Bye-bye.